Good afternoon. Hello there. My name is Austin too. I will be your professor in this course at American Heritage. We are happy to have you, and I hope to be able to help you to learn a bit more English throughout this journey. We're going to start off this class by talking about the simple present. Now, to give you just a little overview, each class will have a video explaining the basic grammar and some of the basic things that you'll need to know to complete the exercises within this section of the course. So we will start out off with the simple present. Now, the simple present expresses an action in the present taking place regularly, never, or several times. It is also used for actions that take place one after another, and for actions that are set by a timetable or schedule. The simple present also expresses facts in the present. Now, this may seem a little complicated, but pretty much the simple present is something that we use to talk about actions or schedules, events, and facts in the present, which would be now, right now. So on the next slide, we'll have a few examples, but that is a pretty in-depth description of the simple present. Now, if we see here on this next slide, we have the verb to be. Now, the verb to be is extremely important in the simple tense, as it is one of two verbs that are the most common verbs that we use. Now, we can see over here that there are a few conjugations. We have the first one, which would be I am. Then we have you are, he, she, or it is, we are, and they are. Now, we will go into a little more depth. Don't worry about the chart now. I will give you an example further on. Now, for most of you, most of our students are Spanish speakers, so most of the examples and the tips that I will give throughout this course will be using Spanish. We can see in the first example down in the bottom left corner, I would say in English, I am hungry, which would translate to tengo hambre. Now, this is something extremely important in the tip. If you look and notice at the top right corner, reads, if you notice in English, we do not use the verb tener, which in English would be to have, as we cannot possess something that is not tangible in the English language. We will explain this in more detail later on. So, as I've said, there are a number of points and things that we will learn throughout this journey, but this is something important to understand at the beginning, is that the English language, compared to your native language, which in this case it may be Spanish or another language, there are things that cannot be translated directly. So these are ideas that we have to take from day one and keep in the back of our minds to remember that these ideas, or the way we express things, will not be the same. And the first example would be that in English, we cannot possess something that is not physical. So if we continue on to this next slide, we can see that we have the personal pronouns. So these personal pronouns are what we saw in the last slide in the table. We have am, which goes with I. We have is, which goes with he, she, or it, and are with we, you, or they. Okay? So in these examples, we can see that most of them are affirmative. I am hungry. I am the boss. It is hot. She is asleep. We are tired. You are strong. They are cold. And we also have two negative examples. I am not tired. He is not angry. So, as you can see, all of these verbs are in their infinitive form. So, the basic way to form a affirmative statement or sentence in the simple present would be to have your pronoun followed by the verb to be in these examples with our noun, which could be hunger, it could be the boss, it could be asleep. And so these are examples of forming basic sentences. Again, you'll go over this in more detail throughout your practices, but these are just a few basic examples. Now here we go to the second verb. As if you remember, I said there were two extremely important verbs in the simple present. One is the verb to be, and the other would be have, or to have. correct? So if we read the definition, have is to hold or maintain as a possession, privilege, or entitlement. So have explains possession. In the negative form, if we use the American example, as you can see in the tip in the top right corner, it says have got is mainly used in British English. Now I'm American, so you will hear, and I prefer to use have on its own. However, I do use have got in certain instances. But for the sake of keeping it simple in this example, we've used have got. But in the more detailed definition, as you'll read in the bottom left, it says have expresses possession in English and is fundamental in the simple present tense, as we use it many times to express possession. In the negative form, we must include the auxiliary verb do. The third person of do is does, which means that the S of the main verb is placed behind do in negative sentences and questions. So again, this is a lot of information to begin with, I understand. Just take it bit by bit. But the important thing to remember, if you're going to speak in the American way, or the American grammar, in the negative or in questions, we have to use the auxiliary verb do. Now this is something that's very important because it doesn't have any meaning. There's no way to translate this, but it is a very important thing grammatically. But in the table, the examples that we have for the positive, negative, and the questions are all using have got. So you can see have, or he, she, it, would be has. So those are the two examples. Now to end this video, I have written a few questions that I hope you can answer. I'd invite you to have a notebook with you throughout this course so that you can take notes and participate in these activities during the videos. So we will be talking about our daily routines. If you look in the figure to the right, the picture, all of these statements, this is somebody's daily routine, correct? And they're all stated in the simple present tense. I get up, I take a shower, I get dressed, and obviously it is in chronological order, or a time-based schedule, from the moment he gets up to the time that he goes to bed. So I included a few questions that you can answer. I hope you all have enjoyed this video, and we will get back to more of this later. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.